My first question I wanted to start with is just why do you feel like people blow up on each other? Because they definitely care for each other. Often, even after the fight, they say, "Hey, I do love you.
Yep.
I do even like you." They just blow up. It's people that do have good intentions for each other blowing up on each other. Why do you guys feel like that keeps happening over and over again?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is that we don't know. We're not taught about emotion, and what we think we know about emotion is the idea of control it and choose it. And so then we are holding. It's like we're holding our breath, and then before you know it, you can't hold it anymore, and you blow up.
Yeah.
And you blow up with each other, the people you love the most, the people you spend the most time with, which there's so much damage in that. And so that's what we love just about connection codes, is being able to understand the truth about emotion and to be able to understand, oh, emotion happens to me. And if I feel hurt by you and I tell you right away, then I'm not storing it in my body. I'm not holding on to it. I'm just going to tell you. And then we teach the tools of how you can respond to that. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to even apologize. You just make space for it. And it's that the beauty of, oh, for me, I feel heard by you. I just told you that I felt hurt by what you said, and you just made space for that. And I walk away from that going, wow, he really heard me. He really saw me.
Yeah.
And so then I'm not holding it, because we eventually do. It adds on and on and on. We call it the 500-pound weight. And then I dump that on you, and that's too much. We can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's impossible for two people to live in close proximity without bumping into each other at some point, without getting into each other's way. We laugh with each other all the time because I'm a very much pattern person. She's always messing up my patterns. It's amazing. I mean, not on purpose. It's not from a bad heart. I used to think she's doing it on purpose. But it's just by definition. We're literally like in the kitchen. Well, we're occupying the same space. So at some point, we're going to get in each other's way, bump into each other, step on each other's toes. That's a given. You cannot eliminate that. What you can do is change how you handle that. So what happens is, and we now know from brain scanning, the brain doesn't distinguish physical pain from emotional pain. So whenever I feel hurt but from something she did, when I feel wounded by her, I do. And it's the same as if I'd stepped on a nail. It's the same as if she had jabbed me in the back of the hand with an ice pick. Not on purpose. It's not her bad intention. And the intention is irrelevant. Now, if she's doing it on purpose, that's a whole other issue. But it doesn't change the effect on my hand. If she stabbed me on purpose with an ice pick or accidentally with an ice pick, my hand doesn't know the difference. I'm like, that really, really hurts. So to be able to know what to do with that pain, with that hurt, and most people don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's interesting you saying that the brain doesn't have as strong of a difference between when it receives pain physically or emotionally, because we do have a pretty quick and verbal response to physical pain. If that happens, we do get hit. We say, ouch. And often even in a world where we sometimes listen to respond or listen to dump, okay, you shared that you're hurt, let me share my hurt. When it's physical pain, one, we're quick to it. We say, ouch. And usually the person's like, oh, what happened? And we care. But with with emotional pain, why do you think we don't verbalize it? And we usually don't respond well to people's pain. We usually dump ours on theirs too.
Right. Well, for one thing, we haven't been trained to do this. We're actually born this way, coded to do it well. We've gotten unlearned in how to do it. But also when it involves the other person. So for me to say to Phyllis, you hurt me, you made me feel sad.
Yeah,
you made
true.
me feel shame. Well, now I'm on the attack. So now when we're attacked, we defend. Every human on the planet. That's just the human condition. Whereas with the connection codes, we learned for me to be able to just say to her, I felt hurt by that. She may still struggle a little, but we also teach the tools of how she responds to me so it's automatic for her. It's what we call the ooh. She just oohs me. So I say to her, I felt hurt. She goes, oh, wait. Then we call it the three phrases. She goes, what happened? What did I miss? Because she missed it. She didn't know. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She did not know that her saying that thing, whatever the thing was going to produce pain in me. But it did.
Yeah.
And that's not her fault. I'm not blaming her, not indicting her. I'm not accusing her. I'm just letting her know I felt pain with that. And so we dance through that because we're good at this. We've been using the tools. We're not perfect at it by any means. But we've been using the tools for so long, we rarely take more than 30 seconds to process through things, which blows my mind because 25 years ago, it would take us literally 3 weeks to process through or not process through something. And so now we're still living in this state of being mesmerized at like, wait, we just did that like in 25 seconds, in 40 seconds. That's a 3-week conflict.
Yeah.
That's trauma. And we just did it in 30 seconds. What the heck? Because we're new enough to the connection codes that we're just like, whoa, really? This is a thing? And it is. It still blows my mind.
Yeah. You guys mentioned tools. Take some time and just can you help us and the audience or anyone who's not familiar with the connection codes, just take some time and kind of explain maybe the origin, but also especially how the framework works.
Well, I think the origin comes from our own story, our own pain, years of marriage where we liked each other, but we could wound each other so deeply.
Yeah.
And so, for many years, we just didn't understand. It's like God's the author of marriage, and yet it's so painful, and there's so much failure in it, and we were seeing it all around us. And, Glenn is just, he's one of those who won't let it go. It's like, I got to find the answers. God did not do this as a practical joke. Like there's goodness in it. So why do we all stink at it so badly and hurt each other so much? So it grew out of our story, our pain, lots of research that he was doing. And then really the big moment was the year that my mom was dying, and I was running my company at the time. Glenn was doing research and starting his private practice, and it's kind of that personal moment where he was bringing things home, and I didn't have time to slow down and listen much, but I was in a crisis. I was in an emotional crisis with my mom dying, and I would say to him, I don't have time to be sad. So I was pushing away grief, and my body started being super affected and shutting down. I couldn't sleep. And he was bringing home all this information about emotion that I had never heard before. And here I'm about 50 years old at the time, and I'm like, how did we not learn this in church and in school and in college? And like, where has this information been? But I didn't have time. I didn't want to read the research he was doing. I didn't have time to read the books. So I needed it to be really simple. Give it to me in the simplest way possible. So a lot of the tools came out of that season where Glenn was trying to help me just out of seeing how desperate I was. And the core emotion wheel was one of the tools that we love now so much. And it came out of that where I was like, just give it to me as quick and easy as possible. But I need the help. Like I knew that I needed to figure out this whole emotion thing and how to actually process sad and be able to connect with my body. Because I really, at that point in my life, thought I could opt out of emotion. I was very much one of those who chose joy. Just choose joy. Wake up in the morning, choose joy, and all the other emotions were to me evil or bad or,
Well, the church kind of does preach that too often.
Yeah.
Only for a few centuries.
Yeah.
For a millennia, really.
So there was that. I was just shocked. I was shocked by the knowledge that our brain houses emotion, which I'm like, wait, God created my body with a brain that houses emotion, but I've never heard this before. And how are we not talking about this in the church, that God is the author of emotion? And I was just like, what in the world? So everything I had based my foundation on, like that you only choose joy and that you can do that. You can choose the joy emotion and you can choose not to have any of the others. It just didn't make sense to me. And so that was the beginning and the shift. And I would say it's just been over the last 10 years. Just really solidified so much more.
Yeah, and going back for us as far as just the origins of this, we went into marriage excited about happily ever after. 24 hours before our wedding, we were just like, this is going to be, we had a dream wedding. I wrote the music for the wedding, sang to her, all this stuff is so cool. And 48 hours after our wedding, we were stunned that what we had signed up for. And I thought I'd been scammed by God or something. I didn't understand because I'm like, wait, how's this possible? We're already so disconnected, living in so much pain. We're 48 hours in. I just signed a 70-year contract. I was 20 years old at the time. I thought I'll live till 90. I was hoping it'd be sooner when I passed by that point because I'm like, I don't know if I can do this for 70 years. And it was all just organic. It was just happening day to day to week to month. But over time, I'm like, this can't be right. This can't be true. I was faith-based then, I'm faith-based now. I'm like, who would design this?
Yeah.
This is evil. This is wretched. This is a horrible thing that somebody scammed us with. And again, I thought, it was a God? What a crappy God we ended up with. I had no idea that this evil, this wretched scheme had been perpetrated on us. And I just couldn't believe that because I'm living it. I'm just like, well, it just is, buddy. Sorry. This is as good as it gets. But as the years passed, I'm like, there has to be an answer here. And I couldn't find any helpful information. And, we'd go to tons of marriage seminars, and each one would have one little nugget that's like, well, it kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah.
But so much of the time, the things actually made it worse. For example, back then the big thing was, you have to keep dating after you're married.
Yeah.
So we'd set aside a date night. That gave us an extra hour and a half to fight each week.
And pay for it.
Yeah, and exactly. We were broke. So now we got an extra amount of time to fight, and we spent money we couldn't afford. So that's not a good win for us. So fast forward many years, I just started breaking, and I went back to school. Phyllis started working, building her business, so I didn't have to work, which allowed me to go to school and to do research. And I just started from scratch and said, okay, let's just observe interactions. Where do people get lost from each other? Because whoever, this young couple, Phyllis and Glenn, walk in, they sit in this chair, they married on purpose. This was not a shotgun wedding. We married on purpose. How is it possible that they now basically, and we loved each other, but we couldn't stand each other, couldn't stand being in the same room. How is that possible? And so I just started breaking it down to the fundamentals, and I would observe, and I did this for 2.5 years, just watching interactions and taking notes and going, okay, he said that, and she folded her arms. And I did it long enough that I started seeing patterns. And so I just started notating, because I'd given up on all of my academic training. And now it's on the other side of the curtain, so I'm sitting with all these other therapists who are like, marriage therapy doesn't really work. I'm like, wait, what? I'm sorry, I just spent a lot of time and energy and money getting my marriage therapy stuff. And they're like, well, I've been in private practice 18 years, and I don't know that we really help much. I mean, we help people talk through things, but I don't know that we really help them. I'm like, well, what the heck are we doing here? And I remember saying to other therapists, I'm like, that's like a mechanic says, I've been in business 18 years. I've never really fixed a car. How are you in business? I don't understand this. That's bizarre to me. So I just started with fundamentals. I said, there has to be a solution here. And again, I'm faith-based. I believe if God designed marriage, there has to be a solution. There has to be something better. And basically what I was told was, not really. Marriage is just hard work. And I'm like, who's signing up for hard work? Yeah. That was not part of my marriage vows, on our wedding day. Like, babe, this is going to be hard work. It's going to be miserable, and we're just going to stick with it. We're just going to stay in it for 70 years and just endure the misery. I just couldn't believe that was true.
Yeah. For a lot of the audience that listens are young leaders, and a common complaint I've heard growing among young people is how we treat marriage and talk about marriage to young people like it's going to be so hard. And they'll be like, marriage is beautiful, but the first year, or if you're engaged or you're getting closer, it's kind of hey, it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. And there's so much emphasis on counseling and tools going into marriage. And then that first year or two, when you really find out, okay, I was prepared as much as I could, but I couldn't have known this is what it's going to be like. There's not as much emphasis on direction and counseling and those tools at that time. It's almost like it isn't that level of emphasis until someone says, I think we're going to get a divorce. Then they're like, oh, no, you guys need to jump back in. So it's like before marriage and then right before divorce, there's this emphasis. And so that's what I love about what you guys are talking about. And really what you've even shared is I didn't think about is there's sometimes this martyrdom heroism, if you will, in the church. And so we could easily just apply that to marriage or apply that to our emotions. It's like, just choose joy. You feel this, but choose this. And you guys, you've mentioned the you've mentioned the core emotion wheel. Can you kind of run us through the core emotion wheel? If you were talking to a couple and introducing them to the first time, how do you explain that to them? Actually, and I know you have a physical version of it here
somewhere. Yeah. Well, and that grew out again of the research, because the same time that I'm observing people and going, okay, she just got hit with an emotion and she pulled away from him. So then I start delving into emotion, just the science of emotion. And as Phyllis said, everybody knows about oxygen. Emotion is as fundamental human as oxygen.
Yeah.
Is. And if you walked in a room and somebody was breathing ice cream, you would be like, how are you doing that? How are you breathing ice cream? That's not human. Humans don't breathe ice cream. And you'd just be perplexed by that. So it's not even possible. And if somebody told you, I don't breathe oxygen anymore, I've transcended, I've matured, I've risen beyond the level of breathing oxygen, it's just not true. They may believe that, but it's not true. The same is true fundamentally of emotion. So the more and more I studied emotion, I realized that this is just basic. This is because and my mother's a psychologist, and she's given me a bunch of her material that she used. And back in the 70s and 80s when she was practicing, she would hand people a list of like 180 emotions. Mm-hmm. It's going to take you 30 minutes just to read through the list.
Yeah.
Forget that. And so then I started realizing, again, through all the research, that, there's only 5 neural regions associated with emotion. It's that simple. You can learn, we're talking about a list of wines. You can't memorize 9,000 vineyards. You can't do it. Sorry. You could probably learn 200. Mm-hmm. So even that big number. But if we get it down to 5, dang, that's manageable. And of the 5, we can talk about that in a minute, we came up with the 8, that this is the fundamental human experience. Every human on the planet experiences 8 core emotions. Well, we can learn that, just 8 of them. That's manageable. And that gets it down. And it also gets it down to the core, what's actually firing in the brain. So we use so many words like overwhelmed. Well, that sounds like an emotion word. It's actually the result of unprocessed emotion, anxious, upset, bothered. Well, those, they sound like emotion words, but they don't actually connect us. And further down the road, we learned research that whenever I convey a core emotion, it tickles the corresponding region of her brain, and it becomes a shared human experience, and we bond through that. So whenever I say to her, babe, I felt a lot of fear a minute ago, it tickles her fear region. And now she's tuned into me. She's like, because every human on the planet knows fear. Yeah. If I say to her, I feel overwhelmed, well, she doesn't have an overwhelmed region of her brain. So there's not a corresponding matchup. It's what we call mirror neurons, as well as other things that facilitate that. So that's just kind of the underlying. And again, I should mention that Phyllis was a very difficult case study, because this is back, 12, 13 years ago, I would bring home this, 195 page project, and I'd be like, babe, you should read this. And she's like, I'm not reading that. Are you? And I'm like, well, at least read the 17-page abstract. It's so interesting. She's like, no. I boil it down to 3 sentences. I'm like, 3 sentences? What are you talking about? Babe, you would love this. And I'm an academic. I love reading, and I love reading research. She does not. And that forced me to make it simple. She said, you boil it down to the simplest of the simple, and I might look at it, which is awesome. I didn't know that at the time, but that forced us to get it down to such a simple, which humans are phenomenally complex. We're really simple.
Yeah.
Once we all get it down to what we need, it's pretty darn simple.
I think you, of course, you probably know this, and people have told you, you're like a gift to him and this process and to marriages, because I almost view it, this is big, but, Martin Luther took this beautiful thing, but complex thing of the Bible, that in that time, of course, people didn't know the Latin or the Greek or the Hebrew to speak it, so they had to have experts that kind of tried their best to translate it to them, but translating it to the common, his whole thing was like, I want the common tongue. Like I remember he said I want the mother to be able to speak it to her child, and the man who puts his hand to the plow, and the farmer to be able to speak it. Wow. So what you helped him do is kind of like, hey, let's keep getting this simplified so any person can receive from this. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And back in the day, It was more very personal, what I needed in that moment. And yet where I see it, where it is now, it is phenomenal to realize it is so simple. And that is to us now, we see just how children, really get this so well. And we always thought this was just about marriage. We didn't realize that learning about emotion affects all of us, and at any age. And the younger you are, it makes more sense to children really get it. And it's as though once we get older, we've complicated it. We've complicated even our faith on it. And people struggle with well, the Bible says do not fear, and so we don't know how to tap into the fear region of our brain. We judge it, and we judge ourselves in it instead of realizing, okay, wait a minute, God put a fear region in our brain. So what is the purpose of that? And these are messengers, and it's a way for us to connect even with God. When you think about, okay, he's communicating through us, through our emotions. And if we are resisting, or if, you listeners are like I was just thinking my only option was to choose joy. And so I thought this works really well. And it did for a long time, I thought, until I realized, no, your body has been storing all these other emotions that you've not processed. And eventually your body just breaks down. And, I know that the audience we're speaking to today is, you guys are leaders of people. And the knowledge is so important, but it's got to be simple. Because if you can teach someone the core emotions, then you don't have to have a textbook. You don't have to have a degree to be able to do that. You can just simply teach them these tools, and when you see the effect it has, it's phenomenal. And you're like, wow, I am simply helping people connect to themselves through emotion, and then we are connecting with each other. And we do travel a lot. We speak to churches all over the world, and we find that the problems are similar regardless of the language or the country or the tradition of the origin. It's like, wow, we are so human in our struggles as far as relationship. And I think about, we get with our travel, we get to experience phenomenal worship in all the churches that we go to. And it's like, wow, you guys really have that part down. Like, you connecting people to God through worship is phenomenal. But what are we doing to connect with each other in our churches? What are we doing are people sitting in the audience lonely and they leave lonely? Like, what are we doing about that?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, because I've heard you guys talk about how Jesus, of course, gave these 2 commandments: to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love people. And we actually sometimes, I feel like in church, skip over loving the people closest to you, because we focus so much on how to be an evangelist and how to be a missionary or how to be missional. We don't spend maybe as much time as we need to on how do you love those that see you every day. And you can almost treat the worst because you don't feel like they're going to leave. They can't leave you, or they're not going anywhere. What are the 8 core emotions? You said there's dozens, maybe even hundreds of expressions of emotions, but it can get a little confusing when there's so much. As you guys identified those 8, what are they?
Well, encyclopedias and dictionaries say there are actually thousands of emotions. I've never bothered reading the whole list, but that's a lot. Because again, that's too much. We have to narrow it down. So the 5 neural regions are anger, disgust, pleasure, pain, and fear. And from those 5, we divide, and these is very specific reasons that we do. The pain region, we divide into 3 emotions because they look so different on a brain scan: hurt, sad, and lonely. They're all 3 firing in the pain region of the brain, but they look different on a brain scan. You think about the difference between hurt and lonely. Hurt has this certain feel to it. It's just sharp stabbing pain. All of a sudden, it's an intense. Well, lonely isn't quite like that, but it's still just a pain experience. So we divide emotional pain into hurt, sad, and lonely. And then the disgust region, looks the same on a brain scan, but at least I've never been able to differentiate them at all thus far. But we divide it into guilt and shame because of how people react to it. So when someone says guilt, typically they look up and away, usually to the left. And again, that's just seems to be the human condition. There's a lot of humans on the planet, so there's probably an exception somewhere. And then shame, people typically look down. So it's distinctly different. So facial expression, body language, behavior. So then we come up with anger, hurt, sad, lonely, guilt, shame, fear, and joy. And joy is just what's firing in the pleasure center. It's not necessarily good, bad, right, or wrong. And it's a big shift for most people with the connection codes is this isn't positive or negative. Because most people go, why is there only one positive emotion and all the rest are negative? Not at all. Joy, I'm convinced more harm is done by unprocessed joy than any of the other emotions. All of us have bought things we should have never bought. You bought a Lamborghini? Oh, yeah, I have so much joy about a Lamborghini. Well, that's bad. That's not good. All of us have overeaten, under-exercised, binged, watched, like, oh, I love this new show. I watched 7 hours of it, and then I called in sick for work the next day because I was exhausted. Well, that's a joy experience. So this joy was unprocessed, and it pushed us to make decisions that are actually detrimental for us.
That's profound. Yeah, I've never thought of it that way, of unprocessed joy. And I definitely was thinking, okay, yeah, there was like 7 seemingly negative emotions and then one positive. I know part of the conversation we want to talk about was blowing up on each other. We've all been in a situation where, let's say we're in a relationship, whether it's a friend, a roommate, spouse, or girlfriend, boyfriend, where you do something and oh, I shouldn't have done that. And they kind of, that person responds as like, oh, that's so frustrating. And then they kind of blow up and go bigger than that small thing. It's like, it's like, just get away, stop. Or like, just give me space or whatever it may be. And you're like, okay, all I did was like this. I feel like the response you're giving is so much stronger than what I actually did. And they're like, well, yeah, I mean, you did this. And then they kind of threw a list. Like yesterday, I felt alone and I felt lonely. I felt like you weren't there for me. I didn't feel loved. I didn't just they go through a list of things that happened at work and I needed you or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, wow, you could tell there's like 6 things and some of them happened in the last week. But this one, like I spilled my coffee and didn't, or left this on the counter or whatever it is what finally was the last straw. How does regularly checking in on each other's emotions help that not happen?
Yeah, and that's what we call the emotional dam. When emotions get dammed up, at some point, now, first of all, you're flooded because the dam got built up, and so it floods you. That's a problem. At some point, that dam's going to burst. And for some people, it's years. And you hear this all the time that, some guy blows up on a Tuesday afternoon, and in crazy extreme cases, like literally kills his family and himself. It's like, but that was a bad Tuesday. No. This was 3.5 years of emotional damming, and eventually that dam burst. When that dam burst, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's bad. So our goal, we have 12 grandchildren. We have a 12-month-old grandson and a 14-month-old grandson. They're phenomenal connection coders.
Yeah.
They process everything exactly as it happens in the moment. They never get emotionally dammed up with anything. We never sit around and wonder, what's happening with Rowan? We can't tell. We can tell. What's happening with Malachi? We don't know. No, we know. And they're coded this way. That's why the connection codes are called the connection codes. We're hardwired. We're designed this way. I'm faith-based. I believe God designed it. If there is no God, it's still just a human condition. Malachi conveys authentically in the moment, vulnerably all the time because he's hardwired that way. He didn't decide to do that. He just turned 1. He didn't say, I think I'll be authentic from now on. No, he's hardwired that way. Well, so was Glenn, so was Grant from birth. And then somewhere along the way, we got knocked off course. And we forgot how to be authentic, how to be vulnerable. And that's when, of course, for us, for decades, all this emotional damming was happening. And again, I've always adored her. She's always been my favorite. I think it's mutual. I'll ask about it later in private. And for many of us, it was Specifically, I'm not mad at my parents, but my parents would say to me, you stop your crying or I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
So I learned, my dad passed away when I was 8 years old, so everything with him was 8 or younger. And I'm not mad at my dad about it. I think he was doing the best he knew how. But I learned early on in life, don't convey anything. Don't share anything. I broke my arm twice as a child when my dad was still alive. The first time I was 5 years old, I didn't even tell anybody. It was 3 days later my mother realized I'd quit using my right arm. What's happening with a 5-year-old breaks his arm and is silent? Something funky to happen. I mean, I think about when we have a 5-year-old granddaughter. If she broke her arm, stop the world. The whole, forget the universe. Nothing matters. Ruby Ray has a broken arm. This is the whole focus of the universe. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. She's supposed to say to us, they call us Honey and Papa, my arm hurts. That's human. That's what we're hardwired to do, and we shouldn't have to sit Ruby down and go, okay, now tell us what happened for you today. And she's like, well, at 10:30 this morning I broke my arm, and it hurt. And we're like, it's 7 p.m. You're telling us at 7 what happened at 10:30? That's not human. That's not the way we're supposed to operate. So our goal is to get people up to speed, up to date, current with their emotional processing. And that's the reason we designed the Core Emotion Wheel, is to train people. Technically, it's retraining because they were born this way. They were born doing it, and then they got lost. And so we're retraining them to get good at this.
What do you guys tell Christians when, let's say, one person is like, I don't want to share my emotions, or I actually choose not to share my emotions to serve you and to serve those around me? So, because I got to keep this together. And if I fall apart, this whole thing falls apart.
Wow. Well, on a plane, whenever they do that spiel and they say, put your oxygen mask on first before you help old people who are struggling and hurting and suffering, and children. It's like, wait, you don't care about old people that are hurting and struggling? You have to take care of yourself. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, and unfortunately, most of us do. We don't love ourselves very well, and we don't love our neighbors very well. And Jesus is basing it on the underlying understood premise that, well, yeah, you're supposed to love yourself. You're supposed to do what's a benefit for yourself. You're supposed to take care of yourself. Then you'll be able to love others. So you may be able to do that for a very small microcosm of time. You won't be able to do it long term. It's just not human. Because the equivalent is you walk in a room, you stepped on a nail, you now have a nail in your foot. If you saw somebody was on fire, could you help put out the fire with a nail in your foot? Yeah, you could. But you can't live that way.
No.
And then so you stepped on a nail, then something fell and busted you in the head, and you have all these woundings, all these pains. So maybe there's a stopgap scenario. We actually call that stunt doubling. There are scenarios where we need to be inauthentic. We need, when my wife's in labor and she yells at me and says, give me some ice, that's not the time for me to be authentic and vulnerable and go, babe, I felt hurt by the way you spoke to me. And if you were there, which would be awkward, but I would want you to whack me in the back of the head and say, shut up, dude, get her some ice. She's in the middle of a contraction. Get her some ice. I don't care if she said it in a kind way. Just shut up and get her some ice. So there are stunt double moments like that, but you can't live that way.
Yeah.
Those are exceptions.
What do you say to the man who's like, I cannot regularly connect with my wife emotionally? And he has warranted reasons to believe that because he's been conditioned. Like his dad, when he was a kid, said, stop crying, be a man.
Yeah.
Or friends when he was just growing up who were guy friends he shared some things that were hurting him or he got soft maybe and they laughed at him and said, bro, they laughed at him for sharing some emotions. Or he just feels like now as he maybe is parenting kids, he feels like I got to be a protector. I've got to be a warrior. I got to be strong. My wife will lose being attracted to me if I'm sharing my emotions. What do you say to that kind of man? Because that's a very common man.
It's just not true.
But
I get it that people believe that.
It's like we don't understand the truth of emotion. And so that's one of the things I think when people do, and you were sharing this earlier about how you've traveled to different places and you encounter people who know the connection codes and they're like, dude, you got to check this out. And part of it is that once you understand the facts, like for me, it was just, and I was what I would call a very powerful woman. I ran a big company.
Yeah.
I was extremely successful and productive until I wasn't. As in, eventually your body is going to shut down. So you may be in a season in life where the way you've done it is working just fine, but you get to a place where then it's no longer fine. And then you start to, out of curiosity, you may go to a doctor and get all things checked. But at some point, someone's going to go, it's the emotion side that you're off on. And you got to realize that your body can't. It has been storing all this because you're not processing, and you got to learn to process your emotions. And so then you get curious about that, and you're like, well, why do we have to wait? Kind of like what you were saying earlier. We have, the pre-married counseling, and then we have, oh my word, they're about to have a divorce. So let's now panic and tell them they should go to therapy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, why do we wait until our bodies break down and then we go, okay, now let's figure out what's happening. And there's such a beauty when we realize the God's design. Like when you realize, wow, I can be a more powerful leader if I actually understand emotion, and I can be, and I think that we encounter that so much that in our leadership, how much it affects us when we don't know how to hear people's pain. We don't know how to share our own pain. And so we are closed off. We've built this wall. No one can really get close to us because we don't think we're allowed to. We keep it together until we no longer can.
So that's what's happening for people with emotion. The emotion's already happening. It's firing in the brain. We know this now from brain scanning. It's not a debatable thing, because people do that. They go, "Oh, I don't do emotions." And I was partnered with a woman that her phrase, she'd go, "Oh, I don't do emotion. Glenn has enough emotions for both of us," and she believed that, and I did too. I didn't know. I'm like, "Oh, okay, she's just different than me. She's one of those." We had no idea that. Oh, no. She feels just as much emotions as I do. She just doesn't express them. She doesn't convey anything. And these are just building up. And at some point, the cells are going to explode, which is actually what would happen if you kept inhaling and never exhaled. Your cells would explode. Well, that's what's happening with emotion. We're taking it all in. It's happening, again, whether you like it or not. It's brain chemistry. The brain's firing emotion, and you don't express it. At some point, your cells explode. They break down.
You mentioned explode. I was just thinking, who is someone in the Bible who just let their emotions build up and then they just let it out on someone? And I can't help but thinking about Martha, and to blow up on Jesus of all people. Yeah. If you guys were to speak to her, maybe coach her, what would you say to someone like that?
Yeah, I instantly thought of King Saul. He was an incredible non-processor, and it built up, and then he would just explode. Yeah.
Well, when you bring up Martha, I think I appreciate that, and I think I can relate to Martha in my own life story. But I immediately thought when you said that, Grant, I want to sit with her and I want to say, what's happening, Martha? I want to go to the root of what is happening in her life where she got to that moment, because often we're not seen, we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard. And we don't know how to find ourselves to even say things like, I need help. Yeah. And it was like Martha had lived a life where she just thought, this is what's expected of me, and this is what I have to do. And then she would, there was so much pain in that and loneliness. And I would just love to sit with her to hear and to keep slicing it thinner till she got to that place of figuring out for herself what does happen with me. And I would assume there was a lot of loneliness for Martha and just the tasks that she was always felt responsible to do.
Could you speak into a little more, because you said you kind of resonate with her, just because what's so interesting about her is she's trying to be helpful. She's trying to be very helpful, and she's taking on the responsibilities of others that don't seem to be helpful by her scorecard. Helping someone who may feel like, oh, I am married to someone who they want to serve the family so much, but I care. I'm almost concerned for them, and help us see the good in that motive and heart, and then also maybe how to communicate with someone that does feel lonely because they're taking on so much.
Well, and for me, that's part of the power of the connection codes when it starts on a personal level.
Yeah.
Like when I'm able to use this wheel every day in my own life and go, okay, what is happening for me? Slow down, Phyllis. I'm very task oriented. Slow down and tune in. And, I feel like the last couple of years have been my season of slowing down and tuning in. And there's actually a lot more pain in there than I realized. There's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of sad. And when you speed up, when your life is always really busy, it's almost like you can fake it till you make it mentality. But that is not that is not reality.
Yeah.
Eventually you just crash. You crash and burn. And so it's a lot of being able to go, I have needs. And, it comes back to fueling, like what's fueling me? What are my pain points? What are my joy points? And if my life is super out of balance, that I've got to figure that out, because otherwise you just run out. You have no reserves left. And so you slow down and you tune in and you figure out, well, what are my needs? And there's a lot of vulnerability for me in sharing my needs, like to say to Glenn, I need you. I need your help. I was raised that no, you just take care of it all. You don't say, please help me. And so it has been so good for me as an individual to go, okay, I need to tune in. I need to figure out just even my pain points, identifying those and making changes in my life so that I have more joy points. I think sometimes as a leader, as a woman in leadership, you feel that there's something more expected of you, like there's a higher standard. Plus you're maybe a mom and a wife, and then you're like, wow, I have to do it all and be happy about it, and to figure out how to do all of the things. And so you just find yourself always running on empty. And so it's that tuning in and going, okay, I need to figure out what is happening with me so that I can share it. I can express it. And Glenn and I, we have a Connection Codes podcast, and I feel like if you listened over the past year of my life, lonely has been a theme of, I feel lonely in the tasks. I feel lonely in the responsibility because I'm really good at them. Glenn is not so good at them, but I feel really lonely in them. Well, that's been an awakening for him to hear my loneliness of the tasks, because I make it look so easy. Like that, it's almost like, how can you be lonely in something you're so good at? Well, I just am. I am lonely in all the tasks.
Yeah. Glenn, what would you say to men who feel like they often hear their wives say, I don't feel like you're helping me. I feel like I got to take on so much. I feel alone in raising our kids, and especially taking care of the home.
Yeah. Well, one of Connection Code's protocol is that our authenticity calls out, our vulnerability calls out safety with the other. So my goal is actually to start with her, to get her to convey authentically, not as an accusation and say, well, you don't help me. Everything's on me. You're lazy or whatever, because you can't sell that to anybody on the planet. And she may be accurate as far as the information goes, what we call the logistics. She is logistically correct, but she's absolutely wrong relationally, because you just can't sell that. But for her to be able to say to him, I feel a lot of loneliness in this. It was what we call the 3 phrases. We're going to train him to go, oh, wait, what's happening with lonely, babe? What am I missing? She goes, well, this is happening, and I just end up feeling lonely in it. And then he gets to what we call the 4th phrase, and he goes, so what do you need? She goes, I need partnership with you in this, whatever this is. The sellability of that is exponentially greater than the first scenario I described. So I'm not blaming him. I will never be the tasker that Phyllis is. I'm so thankful that she's spectacular with it. And exactly what she said, she does it so smoothly that literally for decades I thought that she was just having fun. I didn't know that this is a pain experience for her. This is a lonely experience. I didn't know that. So now she's able to say it to me in the moment as it's happening, and we partner together. And again, we do that in 30 seconds. It's not a 45-minute sit-down conversation. She conveys it in the moment, because life happens fast, and there's a lot to life. So she conveys that numerous times a week, and we partner together in each micro instance so that it feels supported, feels partnered, by me in it. And it doesn't necessarily even mean that it's going to change what we're doing, but she processed the emotion underneath it.
Yeah. You guys have the tools. You've talked about the core emotion wheel, and one of the things that stood out so much this year for me about Jesus is that he was so interruptible. I used to, when I was younger in the faith, feel like I want to be a leader and a person who loves and evangelize to people like Jesus. And I used to think he strategically woke up every day. He's like, I'm going to do this and heal this person and do this. But honestly, now as I've gotten older, I kind of feel like he just kind of woke up every day. He was emotionally healthy, and he had the capacity to respond to each situation, because almost all his interactions are actually just interruptions. It's not like he showed up to them. They came and interrupted his life. Yeah. And you guys keeps talking about seeing someone, actually seeing where they are and how they're feeling and what they're going through. And he had the capacity to slow down, stop, see a person, heal a person, and then be interrupted probably even more and more and more. Yeah. Can you help me understand and us understand what that could look like to have the capacity to stop and say, okay, let's go through this. You even mentioned 4 questions. I couldn't repeat them, but I'd love to hear those 4 questions as you go through this.
Yeah.
Well, what we love and would love to do right now, Grant, with you, is just to do the core emotion wheel. There's so much power in just slowing ourselves down and going, okay, what's happening with me? So we could do it first and then have you do it as well, so your audience can hear just what we're talking about and not just referencing it.
Yeah, we're talking about 2 different things here. The core emotion wheel is a 2-minute exercise. Our goal is for people to do it every day. That's why it's designed to take 2 minutes, because you can do something for 2 minutes. You brush your teeth every day, do the core emotion wheel every day. Because we're retraining you, we're exercising the emotional muscle so that you recognize it again. Again, Malachi and Rowan recognize it. They know what's happening for them, and they convey it very, very clearly. We forgot along the way. And so just like Phyllis said, she thought she didn't even have any emotions. What emotions is she going to convey? She doesn't even have emotions, so there's nothing to convey. And as she has gotten to know herself, so this is the core emotion wheel exercise. Ooh, we say is always the correct response, because the ooh, and Jesus was an amazing ooher. And what the research showed is that if I'm audible, we call it audible listening, which is an oxymoron, but if I'm silent, I could be totally tuned into you, listening to every word you said, hanging on every word. And if I'm silent, it becomes a pain experience for you. It's a lonely experience, because you're looking at me and I'm sitting right here, but you don't know if I'm tuned into you or not. So like just now, you just oohed me. You said, Well, that tunes me in. It literally tickles the pleasure center in my brain. I'm like, okay, he's with me. Yeah. He hears me. So you just oohed me again. And it does. It's just human. I'm human just like everybody else. Whereas you could be sitting there blankly the whole time, listening to every word. But after a bit, I'm like, is this dude, did he leave the room and forgot to take his body with him? Is he here? I can't tell. I think he's listening, but I really don't know.
Yeah. And I think every preacher would agree with you that you preach to a crowd, you guys speak to crowds. When they're engaged, they're responding. It actually brings out more in you. And same thing probably in a relationship. If I feel like you're giving ooh, I hear you. That's true. You start opening up more because you feel that they're engaged.
When we speak, we have to pay attention to not hone in too much on the oohers in the audience, because I want to. Because this table right down here, they're really cued into us. The rest of you can leave. We're just going to, we can't do that. So we have to make ourselves look around at the non-oohers. That's, our role, what we're there for in the moment. But you feel it. You're like, oh, these people get us. They're our friends. We're honing in on them. So the ooh, again, there's lots of versions of the oohs, just something audible. Then what happens, and we did a ton of research on this, just examining phrases that invite people into the experience. For example, phrases like why virtually always shuts people down. If I say, why do you feel that way, Grant? Why do you act like that? Why did you do that? Now you feel accused. And you're going to, when you feel attacked, you get defensive. And so that separates us. And so we delete phrases like that. But what happens was the runaway winner. What happens, what happened, what's happening, what could happen, what might happen, what did happen. Just some version of what happens. And then the third phrase is, I missed it. And the power of the third phrase is for me to say to you, hey, dude, I'm missing something there. I'm not calling you an idiot because you didn't explain it well. Grant, you're not making any sense. You need to explain this better. Well, that's a tough sell because I just insulted you. Whereas for me to say, hey, I think I might have missed something that you were sharing there. Could you help me get up to speed, catch up, back up? Now I'm in a position of vulnerability. I'm asking for your help. Vulnerability, ask for safety. And so now you'll watch people when the third phrase is employed, the other will often like shift positions like, oh, yeah, okay, so what I was saying was, because I'm not making it an accusation that you're so dumb you didn't explain it well, I'm saying, hey, I think I missed something. No, maybe I missed it because you didn't explain it well. I don't know. But I'm just going to present it that way, that I think I'm missing something here. And then the fourth phrase, and those three phrases go together. The fourth phrase is just, what do you need? That's the essence of the human condition, is to figure out needs. Find the need, meet the need. Malachi and Rowan are conveying needs to us every day, all day long. And all we're trying to do is meet their needs. And we live in a very complex society, but it's still just the human condition of meeting needs.
Yeah, that's big. So it's ooh. And then when you say what happens, is it like they're explaining what hurt them, or what they're concerned about, or what they're feeling? I'm responding, I'm engaged, I say ooh throughout it authentically. And then I say, hey, what happens to you when you feel that, or when that happens? Is that the right?
Or just what happened, period, or question mark. Just what happened. What happened. So what happens for you whenever I forget your name's Grant and I call you Greg? Well, you probably feel hurt. You probably lose a little bit of identity, like, wait a minute, my name's not Greg. I get introduced as Dr. Phil often, and so I'm right there at the edge of the stage, because her name is Phyllis. And so people will say, welcome to the stage, Dr. Phil. And then I'm just like, oh, crap. What am I supposed to go out there or not? I'm not sure. But it feels weird. So you're just trying to find out what's happening for the person. Okay. Because when I watch her doing these tasks, I'm oblivious that it's a lonely experience for her. I have no idea. I'm just watching this superstar, phenomenally productive, perpetual motion person. I have no idea that, she's experiencing pain. Well, I didn't know that. So I need to find out what's happening for her because I'm missing it. I'm missing that this is a pain experience for her.
The power of this, what we're talking about right now, of course, came out of many years of, for us, the opposite. Glenn would express pain, and I would say, well, I didn't mean to do that, or that's not what I said. And there was this defensive response that never connected us. Right. It never brought us closer. It's like it started the argument. And we were professional arguers. We were professional, let me tell you what really happened. Yeah. Let me give you my version. Yeah. Your version isn't right. And, we got to a point where I remember so many times saying, I wish there were cameras all over the house filming us at all times so I could prove to you that I didn't yell. I could prove to you I didn't say it 5 times. I only said it 3 times. Yeah. Like, I felt like I needed to be constantly in front of a judge and a jury to prove myself, and vice versa. And the beauty of the connection codes is that you take out of life the judge and the jury, and you're just like, I want to hear your pain. Yeah. If I caused you pain, it doesn't matter. It's not about my heart or my intentions. It's that you felt pain, and I want to tune into that, and I want you to know that I'm hearing you. And when I say I missed it, it's not even in a way, a confession of wrong. It's I really missed with you. And I care about you. So I missed it is just a saying of, I really missed that about you. Like, as in, I didn't know that would hurt him. Yeah. Or he didn't even hear the right words, but it still was painful, and I missed it with him. And so it's like when you learn these really basic tools, it changes the outcome of your conversation. And I love that in leadership. I know we're talking a bit about marriage, but even as a leader, if you're able to hear people come to you with their pain and you don't defend and you go, oh, yeah, I really missed that. they all of a sudden are like taken aback. It's almost like they're in shock that you're opening the door wider. You're not slamming the door shut. And, I think that's one of the challenges of leadership is, do your people feel heard? Do they feel that you're safe, that they can come to you and say these things and know that you're not going to defend yourself or, defend the church as a whole or defend or bring scripture in at that moment so that they leave feeling, small. But can they feel heard and seen by you? And there's those basic tools are so life-giving. And then you see the people just respond to that. And then you're just like, wow, that was powerful. And all I did was, ooh, which is that audible listening, and then saying to them, what did I miss? And then, that whole idea of even asking, so what else happens? It's that invitation, which is so powerful. And I think that in our marriages and in just our communities, we need more of that.
Okay. Everything I think you just said, especially the intentions, the jury, me and my wife have definitely said I wish cameras were here, or I've said it 3 times now. I'm a bad offender of doing that. I think you, Phyllis, are so resonating with a lot of relationships, even just friendships and roommates. And like you said, this is way beyond just marriage. You talked about maybe doing, kind of showing us what going through this could look like. And I'd love to see it. And then, I'll try my best to learn from y'all.
All right.
You're great.
Can we go first?
Sure. Other way. Okay.
Let's see. I think, my hurt recently was a text that your sister sent me. Wow. There was a lot of hurt in that. And I think even anger, just painful, feel misunderstood, feel a lot of anger in how all that's being handled. My sad, I think it's been sad right now, just out of pocket, not having a house, being in the holidays and not having my things that I've always had. And so there's been some sad, lonely. It's amazing. Even though we are blessed with a lot of people around us, I think the holidays can be lonely for me. Life is different, and that's hard. Guilt and shame. I think, definitely feel guilt when I just miss with you. I think you get left behind real quick right now, probably because of the holidays, just kind of. And so I feel some guilt of a lack in that. And I think shame and just, I know how important you are to me. And so I feel shame that I don't prioritize you. And I know I've sensed that, so I feel some shame in that. Fear. I think my fear right now is we've both been, kind of going through just a lot of change. And I think sometimes my fear is, will my energy come back? Will I gain momentum again? Feel kind of depleted at the moment. So some fear about that. Joy. Tons of joy in just for sure the holidays, but also our big trip that's coming up at the end of December and into January. Just a lot of joy in all of that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Love it. For me, tons of joy just with what's happening in our life. There's fear in that too, because there's lots of unknowns. We've never done this before, never been nomads, but I'm just having a blast. Just getting to do anything with you. I've said that for so many years that getting to do anything with you is a joy experience. And getting to travel the world, present the connection codes is certainly a dream come true. We've worked towards this for decades. So there's so much joy in that. A lot of anger drives us to get this done. And there's 8 billion people on the planet, so it's a pretty big target audience. But there's just so much to do and so much to accomplish. And we are really driven to do that. There's loneliness in that at times. I know there's certain things that only Dr. Glenn can do, and I struggle so much just with tasks and staying on focus and getting done what needs to be done. Yeah. Sometimes sadness in that, just that because I don't know, and of course there's fear in that too. But just like, am I expending my energy and time in what needs to be done? And there's so many times that afterwards I'm like, no, that wasn't even what I should have been focusing on. That ends up being a sad scenario. Hurt, with my family, it just blows my mind. The biggest hurt is when they're rude to you, because you should just be receiving accolades every day, all day long from them, and instead they're critical. And I don't ever want to burn anybody's house down, but every once in a while I have that thought. It just pisses me off. It's so overwhelming that they would not recognize you and who you are and what you've done, for my mom in particular. And guilt and shame in that, just that I miss stuff with that. And I've missed stuff for, Mom was with us for 11 and a half years. And just not knowing what I should be focusing on. And so stuff ends up dumped on you. Lots of burdens for you that, especially as the daughter-in-law, you're not even the daughter, you're the daughter-in-law. And so much of that ended up, that weight was just on you, and it'd be after the fact. I'm like, oh shoot, I should have done that, or should have taken Mom there, or taken care of that. And I miss so much with that. Wow. And I think that's the wheel.
Wow, thank you. So Grant?
Yeah. I mean, a couple quick things I saw too is like it is quick. You don't go into you don't go into depth on each one. I got a follow-up question after, but I'll let me do it and then I'll ask.
Right.
Okay, I definitely need to see it to do it. Okay. So you started at Joy. I think you started a different one, so it doesn't matter which one.
Just trying to get all 8.
If I would probably start at Joy, to say, I mean, of course we're about to be in the holidays, and it's a lot of time with my wife's family, and they just live in the country where it's like so slow, and that's perfect for me in this season. As well as we have 4 couples who are like our best friends, and once a year we retreat with. So I'm pumped to go be with them. Cool. Anger. I would say me and my wife, but it's just for me, I guess. We've been kind of angry at how we just never have enough time to get what we need done. And we were almost literally talking yesterday, like, how are we supposed to do it? But we're supposed to figure it out. And shame. Yesterday, I felt a little shame that I haven't connected with my brother, my middle brother, in a long while. My youngest I have, but I tried to call him. I missed him. He called me. He missed me. But just felt a prompting. I need to be a better brother to him. Guilt, I would say. I need coaching on difference between guilt and shame after this. But let's see, guilt. Guilty just about probably eating and just being healthier. It's good timing because it's going into a new year, and so definitely driven to change up. I do feel a guilt around got to get more discipline. Fear, maybe some finances, and just thinking about how do we pay for this and pay this off, and probably around finances where I would see fear. Lonely. I don't feel as lonely. What do I do if I'm like, can it be a good thing?
Yeah,
right. Like right now, some of my closest friends all have moved to Nashville, so lonely. I feel, thankfully, not that lonely. I feel like blessed in that space. Not always, but. Is that okay, or am I cheating?
When's the last time you felt lonely?
Last time I felt lonely.
Or a big time, ever in your life?
I would say earlier this year, trying to do some work and do this big conference you guys were generous to be a part of. And I wanted at least a part-time person, and I felt like I cannot do this without some help. And thankfully someone has come through. But I definitely felt like alone in that. Sad would be... probably just trying to connect with my dad more and more, and would love to connect in a deeper way. I've gotten more time with him than probably ever before, but do wish that we could connect, and just wish me and my dad could talk about some deeper things. The last one would be hurt. Last time I felt a hurt. Probably. I mean, there's different. Probably just not getting invited to some things. Just some things friends were doing, and I was like, oh, I wish I got an invite at least. I knew I couldn't go because I was doing something else, but it was cool to get invited. Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did it?
I love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
If I can ask some quick follow-up questions.
Sure.
How do you know when to continue more dialogue on this? Because I know the secret sauce to this in a lot of ways is you do it regularly. So you check in so there is less blow-ups.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm sure there's times when you guys share something and you're like, oh, that's really big. Like, it requires more conversation. But I also know you guys don't. If it always leads to 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, then people are like, well, we can't do this all the time. So are there times when you're like, that was really big, I really want to give more attention to that? Is it like, let's talk about that on our daily walk or our weekly, or is there a time set to go delve into the more?
Maybe, but that's non-human. Malachi doesn't set aside time to talk to mom and dad or honey and papa about his issues. He conveys it immediately in the moment. Now, we've been doing this a while, so we're fairly adept with the tools, but we just took a 2-week cruise. We stayed in a cabin a little bit bigger than a shoebox. And so we spent 2 weeks right there, and we had certainly no disconnects, no conflict. We put 3 categories. We just made this up. Disconnects, conflicts, very, very, very little tension. And I would say no tension that we didn't process in 30 seconds. We can, and this doesn't mean we don't have long conversations. We love going on road trips, 5-hour road trip. We're like teenagers. We just jibber-jabber for 5 hours. So we love long conversations. But when there's an elevated emotion, we get to it, I don't like saying instantly, but dang near. I mean, we're just really, really good. We're not going to let the emotional dam build up. Yeah. And that's one of our Connection Codes protocols, is to live a dam-free life. We want the river of emotion is flowing freely all the time, which is what Rowan and Malachi do. That's what we're supposed to do. So, are there situations that require that? Maybe, but that's not our goal. Right.
I think part of it is you have to ask yourself, like, for example, if I had shared, I felt really hurt by the text message I got from your sister, and he didn't know I had gotten a text message, but I said it in a moment we were doing the wheel. Then when I'm done, he may go, oh, babe, what was happening with that? Like, what did my sister say? But if it's more that you're trying to dig where you want to defend yourself, like, to really ask yourself, what's my objective here? Like, if you're, let's say you're with a friend or with your spouse, and you're doing this on a daily, maybe more than once a day, and she is sharing, lots of, I feel lonely because you don't do this, or I feel sad because of you, this and that, or I feel hurt by what you said, and you want to follow up because you're like, wait, she needs to understand my heart. Yeah. Then you're really shutting down the process in the sense of create safety where she knows that you can just hear her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think why I ask, because I see that there's can be too, I'm sure even more than that, what reasons why someone would want to continue to go deeper. There could be, oh, wow, you feel that way, and I haven't heard that yet. I want to defend that. I was more thinking, the text message is great. Example for you, I was like, with family is like, oh, that hurt. Or what's so beautiful about this is that even for me doing the 8 just now, there are certain emotions I just haven't thought about as much, but then I got to think about, okay, when did I feel hurt? Or when did I feel sad? And I could see Cheyenne saying like, oh, I didn't know that's what's on your heart with your brother. Right. And wanting to text him or get some more time with him. I didn't know you felt the prompting there, or with your dad, and just caring is like, I'd love to hear more of what's God talking to you about with that, and how you feeling, how can I help? But yeah, it makes you process things that would help a lot. I also see with you guys, that wasn't the first time he's heard about that text message, because when you are in that rhythm, this isn't as much revealing things as it's just checking in, continuing to check in.
Yeah. That's actually part of our goal, is that the core emotion wheel almost is a review, because if she shares something at 7:00 at night during the course of the wheel that happened at 2:30, I want her to share it with me at 2:31. So it didn't build up all the way. And for most of us, and certainly it's true for us, we had such a backlog. My gosh, we had 3 decades of backlog before we ever even started this. So we were way behind. There were lots of emotional dams. But our goal is to be up to speed so that I'm virtually never not tuned in to her and vice versa. And occasionally there are times, she'll share something during the wheel, we never interrupt the wheel because that's a sacred moment. But I'll later go, hey, babe, I think I've missed something. You mentioned hurt about what I said earlier today, and I missed that. I don't remember what happened there. And I don't know if you hear those 3 phrases are interwoven through all of that. And then she'll tell me, then I get to the 4th phrase, and I go, so what do you need with that? And she usually goes, nothing. I just needed to process it with you. And again, that's 30 seconds, not an hour conversation, because most people don't have an hour to sit down and do this deep. So we want to get them up to speed. And the problem is they have so many emotional dams. That's the reason you end up needing an hour. Because Malachi and Rowan never need an hour. Because they're up to date. They convey it in 20 seconds. We're good. We met the need. We're moving on.
Before we go, I definitely want to have you guys share, because y'all are really intentional to create different pathways for different people. If I was a pastor and I'm listening, or if I'm a parent, or I want to help this, I love how much this is helping like kids and just getting them early so they don't have to unlearn it. They learn it. What are different avenues that these guys can plug in?
Well, definitely for your audience, we want to give everyone a core emotion wheel. Okay. So I think that'll be in your show notes, is for them to just tap into that, which is huge. And it comes with a video to tell them, how to do it specifically. We also have courses for a church to go through together, which is so huge when you get the whole church interested and tuned in. We have master classes for marriage. We have parenting ones. We have one on sexuality. So we do have a lot of resources. If you go to connectioncodes.co, you can get on our website and see all that. But I know we also want your listeners specifically to have some good access. We always give a discount code when you kind of get into the system. And so we would love to offer that to all of your listeners.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add that this year we've started certifying coaches. We've gone through 2 cohorts, and our dream is that every organization on the planet, churches, businesses, communities, have access to a Connection Codes coach, somebody that can help them. We all need coaching. Every human on the planet does. So we would encourage people to go to the website, look at that, and whatever organization it is, to have someone that's certified in Connection Codes coaching, because they can help bring this to your group. Again, every entity, every human, every individual, every couple, every family, every church, every business needs this to know how to human, because we're designed for this. We just got lost along the way. And so we would just encourage people to look into the Connection Codes coaching. A lot of churches will kind of pick somebody that's good for this and go, okay, go do this thing, and then they bring it back to their group, which is so powerful.
I just want to thank you all sincerely for giving more time. This is definitely the longest podcast I've done, but it's also because what y'all are sharing is super practical. So I was like, ironically, I still feel like there's so many additional practical questions and things that could help us understand the process. So I definitely want to encourage y'all to go check out the Connection Codes book that goes and delves into it deeper. But just for y'all giving the time, and I want to see. I like having our guests close us out by speaking directly to the listener or the viewer. And this camera right here, if you guys are okay with closing out, just like a 60-second encouragement to the person and the young leader, especially who's kind of hasn't been trained in how to share their emotion, but they're hearing this and they're like, this would so help my relationship with me and my mom, or this would so help my relationship with my spouse, or just with my coworkers. Any way you can kind of encourage them in tapping into their emotions on a more frequent basis. Yeah. And you can just look at that camera, and then I'll close us out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would just say life is precious. Do this now. So much sadness for me to think, I wish I'd had this when I was, pick a number, 10, 12, 15, 18, 20. We married, I was 20, she was 19. Life matters. Life is precious. Don't wait on this. Every day where you miss with yourself, where you miss with your people, where you miss with your partner, where you miss with your kids, it matters. It counts. And there's all these woundings. We went through 30 years of wounding, which became trauma. And we would give anything to have had a clue back then. So we've done all this research. We've done all this hard work. The tools work, and you need them.
So a few reminders. Emotions happen to you. You don't choose your emotions. I love to think of them as text messages from God, so don't block his number.
Yeah.
Tune in and find out what's happening for you.
Yeah.
And that's going to make such a difference in how you're able to show up for other people.
Yeah.